when it comes to, exploring different character designs and all that stuff, the most important thing is establishing a unique and interesting silhouette for your character. Midjourney actually learns a lot based on the silhouettes of the images that you give it. There's a silhouette in her art, and I'll pull it up here so you guys can see it a little better. I understand that not everyone here has a artistic background, and that's totally fine. You don't need to have those skills ahead of time in order to begin prompting original character art. But having those skills lets you be able to really, really own the results, because you had the knowledge necessary to build a unique and easily identifiable character. Midjourney does an image interrogation whenever you send an image, so it's basically doing the same thing. It's going to be judging your character, and sometimes it judges it harshly. This is actually the third goblin character I've given to Midjourney, and the first one it didn't say it was hideous. So in the image description. So let's go ahead and see what happens when we do it this time. So let's do /describe. And I always recommend running /describe privately before you share another artist's art inside of here to them. Because, sometimes it can be a little brutal with its review. I'll be honest about that for sure. So we mostly want to see what it's able to understand from this, and then pull out those useful little nuggets of information in order. Certified not hideous. Thank you, Ancient. I appreciate it. She's going to appreciate that too. Let's see. Okay, here's our result. A simple drawing of an emerald goblet boy with glasses running in the style of Studio Ghibli. He is wearing a white shirt and brown shorts. There is writing on the leg that says M-depth. There's going to be plenty of gobbledygook. And this is also where words like hideous kind of get mixed in there, because that gobbledygooky words, right, are essentially the misunderstandings, right? Like, you could have a girl that has freckles on her face, and it will consider that hideous for arbitrary reasons, right? There's not a symmetry that's there. There's not like a balance that's there. Whatever the reason is, it'll just start to put in things. So ignore the words that you feel are completely irrelevant. Like even things like crayon drawing, you don't really need that stuff when you are just trying to recreate the design. But if you're trying to recreate the look, maybe crayon drawing might be a more useful prompt for you. So there's a lot of benefit that comes from using /describe. And you can always hit the Imagine All button or see what any of the results are by just running the prompt themselves. But this also lets you kind of pull in a little bit of inspo from the artist as well. You notice that Studio Ghibli shows up 3 out of the 4 prompts here. Obviously, we're big Studio Ghibli fans. There is nothing really particularly Ghibli about her art. It's just Midjourney doesn't really have a, at least the assumption is that there isn't this endless sea of lists of names of artists to refer onto. It's just a lot of people like prompting or like the metadata related to Studio Ghibli. So it really comes from a lacking vocabulary, honestly. So by having that vocabulary of especially artistic phrases and terms, like art history people, like art, anyone that teaches art is frankly a god when it comes to Midjourney. So if you, instead of saying Studio Ghibli, right, if you instead asked for let's do like a chiaroscuro, and I butchered that. Let me just spell that correctly here really quick. Okay. Chiaroscuro. Chiaroscuro depiction of a goblin girl finding out it is Saturday at the front. Finding out it is Saturday. Just to kind of evoke, oh god, I just traveled, I just rushed all the way to school and it's freaking Saturday. And we'll run her stuff as a CRF. I'm just gonna borrow it here from you guys. Oh, that's right. You guys are working on a male character here. So let's go ahead and grab her art here. And I'm only grabbing the link because I forgot that I already saved it. So let's do CRF. And then we'll write Niji in there as well. And an aspect ratio of 3:2 just to give us a more cinematic aspect ratio. In my opinion, the most cinematic is AR-21-9. That will give you the most like modern film widescreen experience sort of look. But you can see chiaroscuro depiction of a goblin girl finding out it is Saturday. And the Saturday, finding out Saturday part, it mostly completely ignored that as part of the prompt. But the important thing is the chiaroscuro shows up pretty heavily, which is a strong light and dark. It literally means light dark. And it just refers to like strong tonal contrast, especially when it's casted on the character. But because the CREF is in there and it's been completely unweighted, like it's just running at 100%, the chiaroscuro actually doesn't affect the character art. It's not in the character art, so therefore it's not going to be in the result that's here. This is why artists have so much power with Midjourney and using character references, that the only option that Midjourney users have when it comes to this is either make more images of her at different angles, at different lighting, and put in the work to do that to make a full character sheet, or it is to drop the character weight. So let's do 25 instead, which means we are moving away from her design, but we're allowing more of the prompt to take over. So we'll most likely see more light dark effect on the character by doing this. So you have a couple ways to do this as a Midjourney user, but I just really need to double down that if you're an artist, you could just put some shading on her, and then that shading will now show up inside of her. Like it's night and day difference when you know what you're doing with this. But now look at this. By dropping the character weight, we got the chiaroscuro effect. Okay. So let's take a look. There it is. Light, dark, light, and dark. There you go. Chiaroscuro is most famous for the Dutch woman in the window, right? It's always like a veil or like a thin like fabric of some sort that lets light through and lets it shine. And you really see that same sort of inspiration come into here, especially the impressionist painting and stuff like that. The effect, the style that's here. All that is chiaroscuro, like in terms of the inspirations that Midjourney is pulling from. So you can use character weight, you can use your own original art, you can use this in all sorts of different ways. But let's try to understand a little more about what Midjourney is actually doing with this. This is awesome, Rhapsody. I love this whole teacher angle you're going with this. This is awesome. If we, I'm going to put a flame on that. Yeah. So at this point, if we are now to understand what Midjourney is doing, right? Where you have all these different ways that you can control it, either by manipulating the image or manipulating the parameters, or the prompt itself. Let's break down exactly what Midjourney is going to be looking at here. Okay. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open up Photoshop, and you don't need to use Photoshop. It's just my preferred program, but it is something that it's more for demonstrating today as opposed to doing any actual drawing or anything like that. So let me just open this up here. I'm going to drag it down to a different window. And then I'll open up her art really quick. Copy. Jump over to Photoshop. Boop. Alrighty. You can go away now, update. Okay. So at this point, we see that we have her artwork in Photoshop here. But what we need to do is we actually need to remove her character to really see what the silhouette really looks like here. Okay. So I'm going to use a tool called Object Selection. And it did a pretty decent job at that. Yeah. I would say it's pretty decent, especially for hand drawn. You could see the subtle blurring of the ink is actually preserved inside of the feathering of object select. So that's pretty cool. But I'm going to go ahead and also select here. We have to get a little close with the magic wand tool, but there you go. And there are a couple errors, like we need to come into here and grab this little bit of the shoulder that it saw is outside the arm. The glasses are fine. Hair's fine. Yeah, I would say that's pretty good. We have a little bit to remove down here. There you go. And I'll add a little bit up here, like so. Oops. Remove, I mean, not add. Oh, okay, it's the grass that's in the way. We'll just go ahead and leave the grass in there. It's all good. Okay. So we have all this here. What we can do is we can use the mask button to instantly create a mask around that and check for errors. There will almost always be errors in small pockets of things. So we'll go ahead and first remove this little bit of grass that's here, and we click the mask and then whoop, get rid of that. You'll notice here's a pocket here on the fingers. We can just quickly come into here. There's a good reason why I'm doing this by hand, guys, really quick, so that you guys can see what the difference is of this. So we have this here, and I'll switch to the mask here and switch the color to white, because essentially this works by wherever you draw black, it disappears, and wherever you draw white, it reappears. So with fades and all that kind of stuff, you can quickly come in and clean up your artwork here and create a clean mask around it. Okay. So I'm just going to highlight select this, mute it for now, and then replace it with black. This is what Midjourney sees initially, at least. I don't know. I really shouldn't be quoted for a lot of the actual like behind the scenes stuff. But when it comes to a silhouette, it is so important that the silhouette can be, that you can see who the character is by just seeing the silhouette. Okay. Try your best to blank your mind about the character as you know her so far, right? Would you be able to guess that that's a goblin character? Would you be able to guess that she's a student? Would you be able to guess that she's late or that she's otherwise like, in a hurry? These are all the things that you actually need to consider for your character design in order for it to be successful. It needs to read well. So by just putting this silhouette in there, you can pose characters that match a sort of similar shape. So other goblin characters, if you want them running now without any influence of your of this character, you can just copy this silhouette and bring it over to Midjourney and have it, influence the results that you have. So let's take a copy here, and I'm going to pop us back over to the fantasy stage here. And we are just going to paste that silhouette into there. Okay. And as a silhouette, we'll be able to basically take any of the other characters that have been designed here. So let's see. We have this one from Rhapsody here. That's awesome. So I'm going to borrow hers really quick. And I'm going to say that because we can't just have a single image for the blend here, we're going to basically say that she's running. So at least the action matches the silhouette. And then I'll include her the C-ref from Rhapsody and then Niji6. Okay. Because the image that we're including on the front of this has a lot of negative space and the strong silhouette in the middle, we'll most likely get a pretty strong white background on this as well. But we are going to hit the aspect ratio to AR23 so it kind of matches the reference image a bit. And we'll just see how that looks. I love turbo mode. I love being able to just knock out stuff like in a couple of seconds from what is it, from the prompt that we have. Now I have to note, if you do plan on using turbo mode on your own, it is a bit more expensive than standard Midjourney prompts, especially when you compare it to like relax mode and stuff. So if you want to activate it though, you just write /settings, and it's right here at the bottom. You have fast mode, relax mode, and turbo mode. I highly recommend just leaving on leaving on relax mode, just so that you're not spending your fast hours with me. But if you do really want to show something like really quick or experiment with something in the moment, turbo mode's great for just knocking something out. But in terms of the silhouette here, you could see how much the negative space and the dark and the positive, or like the character space silhouette completely took over when it came to the actual background, right? Like it's almost all white. It basically sees them as clouds. It almost always does. But not only is the word running influencing the posing and stuff, but also the silhouette is influencing the pose at about 50-50 right now. And you could just see like it's doing a really great job at effectively just always making sure that she has her right arm up and her left arm back. So if you include any images at the front of your prompt and blend them with a prompt like this, you're essentially giving it the backbone for your referencing. And you can just, see what's able to interpret off of that alone. As for the silhouette itself, you're welcome to edit the silhouette in order to kind of bring in a different pose, or like a different angle for the characters, just by like manipulating parts of it now. Because keep in mind, beforehand, what we were doing was essentially rerunning entire pages of characters until we found a pose with that character that kind of looked right, that we had to manually clean up. Now I could just go to Photoshop. Okay. I could just go to Photoshop, take this silhouette that we have of her, and just manipulate that. So like, let's do edit puppet warp. This is a tool within Photoshop that's very, very handy if you want to make quick little animations and stuff. But this will make a tessellated version of your character design. So as long as the design itself doesn't change, you can even use like smart objects and stuff for this. But we can just come into here and start manipulating her silhouette. Okay. Break her legs, it was kind of a joke too. But my friend Fran had an interview that she did, and I sent her a gift that was like, break all your legs. Good job. Break all your legs today. Then she sent me a drawing of Vic like breaking the table legs of every table inside of her furniture store, being like, I finally did it. I've broken all the legs. I just thought that was hilarious. So now we have her in a slightly different pose, and you'll notice that it created a little bit of wonkiness with her leg here. That's a pretty easy thing to fix, traditionally, right? We just come into here and boop. Doot. That. And then repair that little segment here. There you go. So there's a bit of a high floating knee as well. But the tool that I used, Trixie, was called Puppet Warp. So if we come into here, hit edit, it'll be right above the regular transform tool, Puppet Warp. It's very, very useful for I really should do this with the so like here, let me show you another neat thing you can do with Puppet Warp. Okay, so I'm going to go back a little bit. So let's go ahead and make sure our selection's the same here. We have this version of her with the color. I'm going to hit convert into smart object. Okay. So now her mask, that silhouette that we use to get rid of the background and stuff, you can see this is the alpha channel. that is now baked into the smart objects. So the only thing I have to do is hit edit, puppet warp, and then start to apply bones to her, basically. Like we're applying the joints, deciding where each one of the joints are. So let's just make her standing here. So I'm going to bend her foot there, there. And we could add another one there and try to, it's just going to make it wavier though. So we'll fix it manually later. And we're essentially just going to puppet warp the character into a new pose. Okay. So you can see it does bend quite good. So let me try adding another one here. That works. Did a pretty good job. Let's try to fix that knee a little bit here. Bring it down. There you go. And then if we didn't like say where this foot sits, right? I could always grab the top of the foot, bring it down, and then the end of the foot as well. And we could just slowly kind of repair our character, because you're going to eventually like crunch it up real good doing this kind of stuff. Okay. So we could hit enter, but here's the real power. Like, yeah, we got a little bit of wonky in the leg. That's okay. The main power of this is that now it's a filter that we can turn on and off. Okay. So here she is running. This one here, puppet warp. Grab her hand, her elbow, and her hand, and now she's waving. Hello. It's very, very cool, especially when you like animate it in the right angle. You can get her to wave and warp and move. And the thing is that puppet warp, by the way, guys, is the same thing that I'm moving with. The less joints you add, the more organic the puppet movement is. So when it comes to just being able to take your character and go, okay, yeah, I like that. Let's have her wave a little bit this way and then duplicate that. Boom. So now I have one and move it a little bit this way. That's two. We're essentially faking what is called an onion skin in animation, where we have the ability to say, okay, we have roughly 4 frames going to the left, and then I can just double back on the others. Okay. Looks at her 1 million joints and parts. Okay. Rhapsody, your character is ridiculous when it comes to that. Okay. It takes less effort to make it look good with less joints. It takes a lot more effort, but you're rewarded with a lot better result when you have more joints. Okay, I'll say that. That's what I'll clarify. All right, so we have these 4 here. Okay. Keep in mind, I'm doing this with my wife's like drawn character here, but you could do this with your generated one too. So we have these 4 frames. I'm going to go to Window, Workspace, or sorry, it's not Workspace. Oh yeah, just scroll down here. And we're going to go to Timeline. Okay. Create new timeline. And I'm just going to set each wave to be 1 frame just to get started here. So let's go ahead and do a cut there. We're going to delete everything that we don't need. So that will be everything that follows these first frames. And just so you guys can kind of keep up a little bit, because I know this is a lot of different random stuff all of a sudden, but we animated this linearly, right? So every layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, so on and so forth, that was all done in motion. So it was easy for me to like show you guys. That also means that I can just move each one of these 1 frame. Okay. This top one is just the silhouette emptied, so we don't need to worry about that one. But if you notice, now she's moving on the timeline. Okay. So the only thing I need to do is I need to duplicate. Yes, I did take you on a tangent, and you're gonna have to deal with it because I'm almost done with it. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna duplicate these, and grab and just basically make it so that if you notice here, if I add this last frame here, it's actually going to click. It'll click between these because you're actually doubling up these frames here. So let's go ahead and get rid of this double here. This one. There we go. Okay. And now I'll bring down the timeline so you guys can see what this looks like. Okay. And entirely in Photoshop, so not even in a proper animation software, we have her waving. So this is all just one frame, right? The thing is that American animation is either done on 2s or 4s, and Japanese animation is done on 3s, okay? So what that means is that we need to drag each one of these, 1, 2, 3, drag that over, 1, 2, 3, and it's a little confusing because I split this up like this. Drag that over here, make this 3 frames. You just need to make sure, you can also like reorder the layers to make it more sense for you, but it's just going to be quicker if I just quickly grab these as needed and just add 3 frames instead of 2 frames to each drawing here, or at least each warp. Okay, now we are going to be animating on 3s. So the thing is that when it comes to very like simple animations and stuff like this, like just by knowing core aspects of like how animations are done, you can make it look a certain way. You can make it evoke a certain, medium or genre or anything like that. Okay. So it's really fun to be able to just quickly, edit your generated imagery by hand. Like you're not doing AI video. This is actual animation that you'll be able to do just by using a little bit of Puppet Warp. I've been using this a ton at the new project that I'm working on, so that's also why it's on the top of my head here. But if we go ahead and drop that to 2s, it's suddenly going to look a lot more Western. So that'll be the last part I show you guys, is just basically jumping culture when it comes to animation. We can just drag all these back down to 2. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tashi. I appreciate it. So you come into here, drag all these back, and you'll notice that as we move this last frame, it'll always move the timeline to go in line with that. What we're going to do is essentially, now that we have this animated on 2s instead of 3s, we can take a look at that. And I know it's super subtle, guys, but this is literally the difference between American and Japanese animation. When it comes to like the very, very like fundamentals, like the building blocks of the animation, is almost everything's done on 3s in Japan. So if you want it to look a little more like, I don't know, like the Ben 10 is like the first time where they like really like merged the styles in weird ways and did weird things with it with Western animation. Then Avatar did it way better after that. But you'll see that there's all sorts of like effect that happens when you animate with certain beats, certain patterns and stuff like that. So like, if we changed any of the wave to be more dramatic, it would be like she has a bit of a quirky wave. That adds character. It just makes it more interesting. So I hope that little animation tangent was nice. It is something that I've found quite useful when doing this kind of stuff. So let's see what the comments are here. Let's see. Tashi said, that's amazing stuff. Thank you. That's amazing stuff. What Victor's doing for sure. I'm learning something I've never known before. Cool stuff. Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that for sure. When it comes to like animation in general, being able to have everything split up is super, super handy. So that's why I used object selection first and then animated with that, because I don't want to bend and bleed a bunch of background pixels. When I'm doing that, I want to only manipulate the character art. So even being able to take like one of these generated images from you guys, and do that very quickly. So let's say, I want something with a relatively clean background so I can edit it. Yeah, let's do this one. See, you guys already up-resed one of these. There you go. Okay, so this one is from I Troll For You. It's a goblin standing before a big witch cauldron where the potion is coming alive. Oh, you're bringing back Malice. I know you are. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and hit copy. So we'll go ahead and hit new on here, and I'll open it up in Photoshop again. But before that, I see that we have a question here. Eleonora's 98 said, "Hello, how long are Victor Gnarly's workshops every Friday? Is this where you can add comments and ask questions? What time do they usually start?" We start here at 4, and they usually go to about 7. And it's all Eastern time zone. And generally speaking, you're using all the right places to post your comments and questions and stuff. Ask away. I try to get to them as needed, but I heavily encourage inviting your friends, or especially if you work with graphic design or anything like that. Bring your coworkers. Like bring people you work with that are like, especially like the critical folks, right? They're gonna I'll get all up in their face for you and let them know about what's what when it comes to AI imagery, like, what works, what doesn't, and really like what's the nitty gritty side of it. Like I've worked in animation for Adult Swim and various other animation companies. Like there's just so many things that I could list right now, but it just sounds like gloating. I just wanted to emphasize that, like, I have the history to be able to be like, okay, this is where we can actually like apply this technology. We're not going to just replace artists, but we're going to amplify them. We're going to make them so much, not better per se, but so much more efficient and so much more interested in their own work, because we can explore new ways to do things. So let's see here. Gosh, now if only I had a PC and Photoshop to be able to do this kind of animation. So cool. Yeah, I'm always surprised by the number of people who don't have computers anymore. Like they use all their phones for everything, including Midjourney and stuff. And I would just feel so neutered if I didn't have my my PC in front of me. I also have like an ultra wide monitor that I'll never get rid of. I cannot do the split screen anymore. I need to just have this nice big monitor and call it a day. Let's see here. Hey employer, I know my work was absolutely no use for Photoshop, but hear me out. Yeah. No, I'm more speaking to the graphic industry folks for sure. I got 3 monitors. It's still not enough. My buddy bought a D9 like this, this, I forgot the exact brand. I think it's LG, I think. Is it LG? No, it's Samsung. I have a Samsung ultra wide G9 monitor or whatever. And my buddy got he found a dead pixel in it. So he ordered, he did a return. They sent him the new monitor before, like basically saying, hey, put the old one back in the box, right? So he was like, I cannot do this. So he stacked both of his ultra wides on top of each other. It's just so absurd. Like the amount of dominance on his desk. He was worried he's going to snap his desk in half with how heavy that damn thing was. But yeah, I was envious looking at it though, because it looked like the ultimate like airplane simulation sort of setup you could have at your home. Okay, all right. I've tangent enough about monitors. Let's go ahead and get this character removed from the background here, just so you guys can see this. Then I'll jump back into questions. Feel free to ask them, though. They're all in VC text, by the way. If you guys don't know where that is, it is just above the stage here. So I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see this a bit better. Just above the stage where we're talking right now, you'll see VC Create and VC Text. VC Text is where your text will show up and eventually end up on YouTube. And then your prompts, the things we're all making together, they show up in the center here under VC Create. So yeah, prompt with us over at VC Create. It's a whole lot of fun. So let's go ahead and copy this prompt, the actual image result, generated image. And I'm just going to hop back over to Photoshop one more time. Oh, hey, there I am. So we're going to hit paste of this. And I'm going to get rid of my face. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Face deleted. Okay. So we have this character here. Photoshop actually has a tool called Remove Background that we could just click. And it did a great job. like, oh my God, great job. No issues, really. There's always going to be some element of feathering that we should want to fix, right? Like it doesn't include the outline at all. with this character here. So we can come in and control select the mask, right? And you could see that it's like somewhat close to the line. There's a little bit of feather that's there. So what we can do is go to select and then modify our selection. Okay, so right now we want it to expand a little bit so that we could see the outline. So let's expand it by 1 pixel for now. 1 pixel, okay? And I'm going to now grab the paint bucket tool, switch it to white, and then paste the white in there. And look at that. Paste, 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 paste. And there we go. We got our outline back, even though it was missing from the automated selection. And lastly, there's this little bit of foot here that shouldn't be there. And the masking tool will just come in, switch that to black, and select it. And there we go. Now we have a clean mask and a cauldron of this character. I can delete the background just so that we could see it. And the last real benefit of using smart objects for this is that we can select smart object and start to animate it and then edit what's the context of it. So like, for example, I'm just going to make oops, don't want that tool. I'm going to make an arbitrary puppet warp of this so that you guys can see what this looks like. Puppet warp. I'm going to grab her head here, and I'm just going to make a second dot here and just move her head away from... Whoa! Let's just grab it like this, okay? Just so I want to show you guys this. So you can see I could turn on and off puppet warp, okay? But I can also now hit edit content, and then add a layer, or edit the original. I wouldn't recommend it, but just add a layer. And let's make this indicate that this is malice in here just a little bit. So I'm just gonna grab my pen here, and I'm just gonna put an M on that. Okay, I'll edit it to be a little smaller, fit where I want. Now here's the cool thing: I just hit save, and now the puppet warp respects whatever I changed from inside of that object. So if I wanted to do a design change on the character or something, it will always respect it as long as you do not change the silhouette. This is why I started this with silhouette, because the puppet warp basically triangulates the silhouette into a functional, like manipulable design. And if you change the silhouette, it will not manipulate the same way. It might do okay, but it will look pretty janky if you did that. What I mean by that is, now if I go to edit, and then I put this design outside the silhouette partially. So let's do like something like this. Okay. And then I hit save. Now look what happens if I turn on and off puppet warp. See how it just disappears? Because it's not part of the it's not part of the like tessellated or triangulated mesh that was that builds up that is the puppet warp, the puppet itself inside of puppet warp. So it just deletes it, right? Because it's not actually part of the puppet. So we bring this back down. We make sure it's inside of the silhouette completely. Hit save, and then everything works again, right? So it's very, very useful for this, being able to just edit the puppet as needed. But let's go ahead and make this a little bit more advanced of a movement. So right now we can just kind of like drag her around, right? Around this bucket. But let's go ahead and make it so that it actually kind of gets what we want to do here. So let's first plant her feet. Okay. And now when we move her head, it's like, can't move the damn bucket. Like that. It's so cool to be able to be like, okay, here's a constraint: 2 feet on the ground, stay there. Can't. Like it's just instantly we're animating. Okay. So it's neat for this. And we could actually like kind of like talk as if this character, just by doing this. Like I've seen people animate with the tessellated, like I'm gonna just shove her head in here real quick. Like we could actually animate with just a live camera recording of this. You'll gotta, like, oh, the tessellation's in the way, right? So what we can do is we can actually come up in here and inside of the Puppet Warp, so double click Puppet Warp, turn off Show Mesh at the top here. Okay. Now it'll still show the dots. I believe there might be a way to take out the dots too, but now you can do it like, okay, hi, how you doing? You want to help me drag this cauldron? Like you could do some very loose animations just by recording your screen and moving your mouse around. You're going to see some janky stuff like like the mouse cursor and stuff, but I've seen animators animate like this, right? Just because it's easy, just because it's a way to create content very quickly. So yeah, there you go. Okay. All right. So that's my demo of Puppet Warp, my spontaneous rant about Puppet Warp. So yes, these are recorded. I'll pull that up here in a second. Alrighty, we're back on the stage here. Yes, you very much did start that tangent, Trixie. Thank you for that.